What I suggest is we've got a 40-minute panel right now, which is shaping up to be really insightful. And after that, we'll head to the track next door to see the results of the indie prizes. We've got a few speakers here, so while we grab the chairs, I'm going to ask them to come to the stage. I believe we're going to be joined by Michael from Mavent Partners, David from Double Coconut, Zach from Play Everywhere, Karina from Mixmob, Christian from Game Jam, and Kiefer from Economics Design. Am I right? Are you all here?
Good afternoon, everyone. We're standing between you and some extra fun here, so we'll make this a bit quick. By the way, you're my favorite questionnaire right now, so I'm going to pick on you for a little bit. So welcome to Rules May Apply, What to Expect from Blockchain Gaming in 2023. Before we get started here, I'd like to ask a few questions of the audience, just so we can get a sense as to who do we have here. Let's also make sure you're awake. Can I ask you by a show of hands, who of you has actually played a blockchain game? Okay. Who actually owns cryptocurrency? All right. Who owns an NFT? For those of you who missed this in the earlier session, this fellow asked effectively, why do we have blockchain in games? Is what it boils down to. So to answer that, we have a panel here to help thinking about what's happened in the past and what will happen in the future. Maybe we'll go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves one by one. Karina, how about you?
Tess. Hi. Pleasure to be here. My name is Karina. I am the game director for Mixmob. It's an upcoming blockchain crypto game studio. I've had previously worked in traditional game development for about 15 years before making the switch. Pretty much had a light bulb moment when I decided to quit my corporate job and go back to being indie in blockchain.
Hi, I'm Zach Whaley. I'm the Director of Engineering at Play Everywhere, a co-development studio based in Georgetown in Seattle. In my past, I've also worked with Magic Leap doing XR and whatnot, so just always excited about different cutting-edge tech and the applications for it in the industry. I'm also the chair of the engineering SIG of the IGDA and the treasurer of the board of directors of the IGDA.
Hey there, I'm David Fox. Our company, Double Coconut, it's a 10-year-old work-for-hire and co-development company as well. We're based in San Francisco and Armenia. And we've been in blockchain even before it was hot. So we have been worked with Splinterlands. We've built a big collectible card game called Emergence. And we have a number of projects, and we like playing in the space, and we'll tell you why.
Hi everybody, I'm Kiefer Zhang. I'm a consultant on the economics design team. We help companies like Shrapnel, Sparkadia, Scopely with economy design and monetization strategy. I've, in terms of my blockchain background, I've been involved in the blockchain space since 2014 or so and have been working in there professionally for the past 5 years or so, thinking about how do you design the future of virtual economies.
And I realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Mike Chang. I do personal investments, and I actually help out with a company called Azure Games. I was founded by the CEO of my best acquisition at EA a decade ago. We just raised $25 million last year, primarily from A16Z's Games and Crypto Fund. Maybe to start off and address the question head on, this has been a bit of a bear market in recent times for crypto and crypto gaming. Can I ask the audience here, or not the audience, but the panel, how they think about this clearing out, as it were? Is it good or bad, and why?
I'll go ahead. I certainly think that it's one of those things that's, I think that there's a direct inevitability of the things that are being applied anyway, and so a lot of the hype and whatnot, there's always hype with a lot of cutting edge tech when it's exciting and whatnot. And I think realistically, the ups and downs are kind of something to just kind of be ignored. It always sucks. Markets always are up and are always down and moving through it. And I think that it's just the opportunity to pursue and take advantage of those kinds of opportunities as it's emerging and developing. Just like keep heads down and move on.
David, I know you have opinions.
Yeah, so is it good? No, it sucks. It's not good. So I think you also were in crypto games even before Axie kind of took the world by storm late 2021. So Axie Infinity came, and all of a sudden every VC and games became very, very popular, and the hype was clearly overhyped. So the fact that that gas is out of the tires now, and now we have a car that can actually run, maybe it's the tires are a little flat, but that part potentially is good. Listen, I mean, I think this is a big theme that I want to stick to, but crypto has so many different audiences. There's the hardcore believers, there's people that are in it just maybe to earn a little bit, and then there's people that just don't know much about it and are yet to learn. And I think that biggest group is far ahead of us, just like when free-to-play started. Most people just didn't know what free-to-play are, they didn't care. There's so many people that have not experienced what crypto can do yet. No question, there's great things ahead.
Okay. I love these opinions. So I think this is actually a pretty good time for developers who focus on building the right stuff. And why do I say that? Because we don't know what the right stuff is right now. But what I saw after Axie Infinity, I saw something like a cleanse. Does anyone do like detox, or you have a juicing cleanse? Like it's really healthy for you. Yeah, that's right. Right. So when we saw at the height of the bull market, things were good, things were very bougie, there's a lot of money being thrown around, and that was a time where the market seemed a little irrational at the time. It was very hype. I hope the panelists will agree with me, it's very hype. And then we entered the bear market, and this is where things got real. So I think it's a good thing because things are super real right now, and developers who have been building and focused on building all along the way can only see the benefits when we emerge from this. And as Zach mentioned, it's a market that will ebb and flow, as do all things. But if you can continue to build, this is a good time for those who are just focused on that.
Yeah, bull markets are a great time to accumulate capital and talent into the space. And so we've seen a lot of waves of this. I was following very closely in 2017, 2018, when I bought into Axie Infinity's Origin sale in 2018. But there was this gap between them actually getting the funding, getting enough interest in the space to get talented people to start building things out. And then there's the lag time to actually build a game. I assume a lot of you are familiar with how long it might actually take to build something of quality. And so this past bull run we've seen has been an opportunity to pull money into the space and also really quality people in building things. Now the bear market is the time to actually leverage that money and those resources effectively and build something great for the next cycle.
Can I ask the panel or the audience, is there a blockchain game that you enjoy playing today, that you have fun with? Anyone? Sure.
I quite like playing EV.io.
Okay. That's one. Others? Interesting, huh?
I'll
Here-
throw in, I've enjoyed playing Superior by Gala Games. It's a roguelike shooter. Still, they're working on the depth of it a little bit, but I think the core game experience is pretty interesting.
Two people on the bleeding edge. Anyone else? Battle Nations. Sure. But isn't that fascinating? For this entire audience, there's actually not that many quote-unquote fun games. So in 2023, 2024, are we going to see more of those types of games? You work with a lot of clients. Are these fun games coming out?
They're absolutely coming. We have really high quality developers who are going with that mentality first. We have to create a really quality game, and that's going to drive the fundamental demand that will enable all of these interesting Web3 economies, ownerships. But underneath all that, there needs to be real games that drive real demand from real gamers.
So I think it depends on who you ask, really, because we as developers, we still need access to the right tools
Sure.
to make things high quality. And so when we think about like Web3, some of these games are browser-based, like Battle Royale or Mini Royale, it's browser-based. And so we're only limited by what we can do within a browser at that time. However, as time progresses forward, we are starting to see some really high quality games with all the right talent in the right places. AAA developers are also leaving their jobs to come and do this. And we can see from the room next door, like Shrapnel is super high quality game developed by AAA developers. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of that.
As the previous speaker also said, Web3 means different things to different people. I'm going to pick on Karina for a minute again here. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are regarding blockchain games? Or what part of blockchain are we going to see in the games to be successful? Is it NFTs? Is it tokens? Is it the back-end infrastructure? What is it that you think is important?
I heard two questions there. Could you clarify? I heard
Sure.
misconceptions and I
Maybe
heard
what do you think the
future.
biggest misconceptions are about using blockchain technology in games?
Okay, so the misconceptions of blockchain, using blockchain in games. So I think just maybe to people who are just coming in and reading what journalists tell us about blockchain, you're going to be asking yourself, is this ethical? Does it use more energy consumption than average? How do I avoid getting scammed? How do I avoid getting exploits? And I think those are some of the biggest misconceptions right now because, again, we are behind in the tooling, but it's only a matter of time before the blockchain becomes more efficient. I think the previous speaker, if you were here, was just saying that Ethereum has maybe 4 or 5 iterations to go. And so if you can consider that Bitcoin is proof of work, and that's how they verify what's on the ledger. Ethereum and other blockchains are starting to go into more like proof of stake, proof of authorization, proof of history, and these are more efficient ways that reduce energy consumption. And so the game that I'm working on, just quickly, just for context, it uses Solana, which is a blockchain that is one of the more gas efficient and performance efficient blockchains out there, and what I'm trying to do by using or selecting that blockchain, and anyone who's thinking about making a Web3 or blockchain game should consider what chain they're going to use. We chose that chain because it is not quite on parity with where you want to go for AAA, but it's almost there. Ethically speaking, we have lots of talks on AI right now that, I'm sure there are many artists who are worried if their content would be reproduced or sold onto the dark blockchain market. And that is a real concern, but there are ways for us to verify and counter that. I won't go into those details right now. And then the last thing about that, what was it, Michael?
So asking the question maybe for the broader audience as well here, tokens, NFTs, interoperability, what part of Web3 is most exciting to you to put into these games? What do you think will be adopted in 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, and also a little bit to address the last question about games. So, and just to start off very quickly with a little personal, what brought me into blockchain in general was, of course, the kind of libertarian, fuck the system ethos. There's a little bit of the potential for life-changing wealth was certainly a factor. It's all these kind of sexy, cool things brought me into it. And as a technologist, the nerdy part really brought me into it. There were all these systems to figure out. It was so complicated, and I loved that as a nerd. And there are gamers who love that, and there are still blockchain games that are fully on chain where you have to really geek out and play in command line in some extent, and you play with ASCII art, and they're incredible. They're incredible exercises, and some of them actually are incredible in terms of their market cap, believe it or not, even today. So when we think of games, there is a whole spectrum of people and a very small audience right now that does want to play these really crazy, geeky blockchain games. Of course, and this is the cliche thing to say because it's true, all the games of the future are going to look like the games now. They're going to be fun, they're going to be easy onboarding, you're going to play them, you're going to enjoy them, and there'll be some on-chain elements. So in terms of what's working now, I think NFTs are the easiest and safest way to go, just in terms of some digital collectibles, right? People don't like to use the term NFT anymore, but something you collect either to just get in or something that once you achieve, you collect to prove you've achieved it. That's clearly already working, and I think we're seeing more and more traction with that. You avoid all of the issues with tokens in terms of regulations, all of the issues with tokens in terms of the complexity of keeping them stable and keep them growing. So that's a very easy hook to a mass market audience. Sorry, long-winded answer.
Yeah, Kiefer, do you have opinions on NFTs?
Yeah, and so something that gets talked about a lot with NFTs is the concept of interoperability and the things that can leverage. And maybe first to say what I think that actually looks like, what that actually means. I don't think it means that you take this specific sword that has a specific art and does 5 damage, and you're just going to throw that into another game, and it's going to look exactly the same and have the exact same stats. That's not realistic from balancing our perspective. But more realistically, you have a set of traits and perhaps a history that evolves over time that another game can look at those fundamental traits and then create and then use it in whatever context is relevant to that scenario. But in terms of how this actually is structured, I think what makes the most sense is having these ecosystems where maybe it's a studio that is creating multiple games and NFTs are used across them, or perhaps even more interestingly, we're going to see a Web3 version of Roblox or Fortnite UEFN, where there's one entity that is essentially creating NFTs that are interoperable within the system. And as an example, this is actually what MapleStory is planning on doing. They've been going for 20 years, and they're going hard into Web3. And so they're going to be monetizing an overall ecosystem by distributing out NFTs, and they're opening up those NFTs and their IP to people being able to build out whatever in their ecosystem. They'll have tooling to build out games, tooling to build out apps, and so you could have a character that's, you play with it in the main game from Nexon, you play with it in a third-party game, it could even be your fitness trainer in your fitness app. And it's not just leveraging the IP, it's not just, oh, it's this character in these scenarios, it's your character. And it's matching the traits and the experience and the history that you've had through all of these other experiences, and grows and stays with you over time.
Interesting. So to reemphasize this point, imagine, if you would, all the different companies that we deal with: Electronic Arts, Activision Blizzard, Take-Two. Do you think that EA in Battlefield is going to allow a Battlefield or an Apex Legends item to go work in Overwatch, or to work in Ghost Recon for Ubisoft? There's kind of these walled gardens between these different competitors. It's very difficult to think about them allowing this to happen. So as you say, within company, perhaps we'll see this, just as we've seen with the various platforms, right?
Yeah, and there's an economic component of that as well, because like I was mentioning with a UGC perspective, maybe the side studio that's creating this content within an overall ecosystem, they're getting paid out of a portion of like the umbrella monetization, same as like with Fortnite paying out 40% to creators. But if you're talking about two companies that are both monetizing through NFTs, then now there's this competition. It's sort of like if you're a country and you're producing something, until you open up your borders to foreign competition, then now they're going to undercut you. You don't control the supply. And maybe the people who are creating UGC in your game, now they're making less money, they're going to leave. It's not a good experience for them. So it makes more sense to just have one entity that is leveraging the benefits of Web3 NFTs and getting the retention benefits of when people churn from a game, they'll want to go somewhere where they can still use that NFT and they'll stay within the overall ecosystem.
I think something to bridge a number of the previous questions and topics here. I think I'd want to say that like consider networking, not like technical networking. I mean like this networking. The most effective networking is where you're friends first and business later, because you have those relationships that you can like really build on and be able to help and support each other. By going business first and whatnot, you can severely alienate a lot of people. And I think similarly, addressing it to game design, I think that fun first, business later. The business comes from things being fun. The technology should be able to serve the actual like enjoyment of what people are pursuing. And so like to actually try to be forward and about thinking about like, well, okay, how do we like do economy design with NFTs and whatnot? It's I think the primary thing that's going to be able to be the driver of adoption and utility from a broader purview beyond like boutique or niche applications is how can it service and not upstage like the actual content itself and the utility for it for the players. Like considering like potentially even like non-monetary design, like NFTs are very like almost like the simplest form of a smart contract. What are the additional applications or implications that are potentially non-monetary of even using like Blizzard went and did the real money auction house back in the day, right? They basically became a bank to be able to support that economy. Is there something where, sure, you could do that with a DAO or something like that with some tokens and whatnot, or you could entirely avoid the complications as mentioned in the previous speakers, like all the wallets and governance models there, or custodial wallet models, of just everything is like shielded by the entity and it's just like, well, it even just perceives as a normal kind of experience from a player because it serves as the like hooks for games.
Zach, could we pick on Blizzard for a minute and the Diablo auction house? let's pick on Blizzard's Diablo auction house for a minute. Does that work? Is that something that we'll see going forward in blockchain games in 2023, 2024, and onwards?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is something I've been thinking about a lot from an economics perspective, because that was an example of an open economy that failed. And I think a lot of this comes down to the concept of controlling the supply of assets that are in your economy. When we're thinking about closed economies, which what you probably all are used to, the player goes, they kill a boss, and there's some probability that that loop drops for them. And that works great for the individual player experience. You're tuning the frequency of getting assets to making sure the player feels like they can progress through the game and not be forced into buying stuff off the market to reasonably get through things. But then when you open up an economy, you have to have this mindset shift as a developer of, okay, now I have to actually think about what is the total amount of this item that's in the economy. Because if you don't do that, then people are just trying to extract value. It's just going to be a race to the bottom. They're going to keep taking money out or getting these items, dumping them on the market until the value drops to how much people value their time in the lowest income country, or basically zero if they figure out how to bought it. But so with the Diablo 3 real money auction house, now they kind of run into this problem where, okay, now we realize we need to limit the overall supply of this, but now the people who are just trying to play the game and don't care about this at all, they're not getting enough of the items. They're like, I need to get a stronger weapon to beat this boss, but it's just not dropping. And I don't want to go to the market, so I'm going to leave this game. And so that is also an issue. And so I think where Web3 needs to go when thinking about open economies is there needs to be a mix between tradable and non-tradable assets. You need to have the non-tradable drops that are at a rate that's reasonable for the users to go through the experience and have a good time and not have to care about the market, not be forced into any sort of Web3 interactions. And then also at the same time have a drop of these tradable items or materials to create tradable items, depending on how this is set up, that is based on the overall supply, regardless of the number of users, and really based on what is the real demand from people. The same people that might be buying in black markets and traditional MMOs today. That demand really is there. They want to be able to buy these items and provide the fundamental demand here. And so having this mix between tradable and non-tradable assets, you don't have to go all in one way or another. And I believe that way we can solve that problem.
Karina.
Yeah, how many game designers are in the audience today? Okay.
Thanks, Cameron.
Great. So I agree that for blockchain games to be successful, you have to make a good game, a fun game to start with. But when we think about crypto and blockchain, like there's another axis to it that we must consider. So if you're a game designer, you're probably very aware of the Bartle types that we have, like the explorer, the achiever, the socializer, the killer, etc. But we go into blockchain, there's actually another axis, which is someone who's more financially motivated. Someone who's looking at your game or product and looking at the NFT as a financial vehicle. So when we have that kind of person coming into your game, we have to think about there's a hack and slash opportunity for the gamers, the people who want to enjoy and indulge in these quick game, it could be casual or hardcore games. But then there's also a moment or a pause where the financially motivated people will go into something like the auction house. I think the fact that we even have, Diablo 3's auction house is testament to how this is a desire from the players, and it has been for many, many years. Since World of Warcraft, back in that long, right? Like way back, players have been putting their accounts with their high-level, level 70 warlocks onto eBay for many, many years before blockchain came and introduced NFTs. So the desire was always there. It's just now we have to consider that balance of how do we make a fun game to provide the utility that makes sense for that gamer and also adheres and motivates to the financially motivated players.
So why does that matter to the audience here? Again, time is the most precious thing that you have to give yourself, whether it's a project that you sign on to work with or a game that you pick to play. As you look for these games, you should ideally find the ones where people are thinking about these solutions. These are games that will last the test of time. Those that do not address this will, get some interest and then die, as we've seen with Axie Infinity, most recently from Sky Mavis. There's something we describe here called a time paradox here, and I'm going to pick on some people. Let's say Kiefer makes $1 an hour. Karina makes $100 an hour. Both of them play the same game for 5 hours. Both of them get, the sword of death plus 5, okay? So Kiefer spent 5 hours, $5 worth of his time, so to speak, to get this item. Karina spent 5 hours, $500 worth of her time to get the exact same item. Now let's say Kiefer puts this item up on an exchange. What happens there? It's quite a bit of a problem, because for someone who spent so much of their time, your time is now devalued. Sure, I could just buy it for $5. If I do that, I've skipped all the content that's been built up to try and addict a user into this game, right? We call this a time value paradox here. Challenges like this are new challenges we've not had to face before, and why is that? In free-to-play games, you're designing a game where you're effectively leasing digital assets to players. In blockchain games, now you're designing games where players actually own digital assets. It's a subtle difference, but it's a difference in terms of how you design a game. And I feel this because we interview designers and PMs, and frankly, a number of PMs who make free-to-play games are having a lot of trouble making the adjustment over. Just as in the old day, premium developers were having trouble adjusting to free-to-play. I would never have backed a premium developer straight out until they had made 1 or 2 mistakes, so to speak. Speaking to this, are there other challenges that you would think about? Other things you'd have the audience consider here as we move forward and hopefully get more successful games?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of continuing on to that, like this is one of the reasons I was kind of like talking also about having like the non-monetary implementations of being able to use still the same technology in similar ways. Like from a game design perspective, in general, like the symmetry and fairness almost just like essentially doesn't matter for entertainment. Like having those kinds of real-world economic concentrations then suddenly have an impact on someone's experience in a game. Like this is why WoW subscriptions have radically different costs globally around the world, but they engage in like the same markets. So it's like by using that technology and potentially still being able to, from a game design perspective, like I'm going to inject and manipulate the market and whatnot, and like you can still leverage a lot of the transactional benefits of being able to have within the ecosystem, as an example, but without the complications of like actually implementing it yourself. So it's like there are some toolings and middleware possibilities, and just like having a boss fight being symmetrical and fair kind of sucks as a player. You want that asymmetry, you want that overpowering. So being able to have levers to be able to design that can be very useful.
Can we talk about middleware for a minute? There's a lot of blockchains out there. We've got Solana, Ethereum, number one, and then we have the chains above that, the L2s, whether it be the Dapper, the Immutables, the Polygons, the Aptos, the Mistons. Does anyone have an opinion who's going to win? We have history here. We have different platforms in gaming that have won. Valve from Steam has won. Fortnite with Epic's Game Store. EA had Origin, now they call it something else. Battle.net with Blizzard. Is there any consistent theme here as to what and why a platform won?
So here's one thing I'm pretty sure of is that mass market players aren't going to care. They're not going to care what chain they're playing on. They're not thinking chain. They don't. If you get to the point where they have to cross a chain, you lost them already. You lost the mass market. So,
Yep.
so tools like the previous speakers and other tools that just figure that out and make all the chain and all the tech very transparent are going to be what wins. So
Can I ask here, why do you use the App Store? If you're an Apple user, why do you use the App Store? If you're an Android user, why do you use Google Play? If you're a PC gamer, why do you use Steam?
First two is because you have no other choice.
You don't have no choice. Sure, okay. A little bit more than that. Discovery. Content. You have the winning content. Valve, Steam didn't really get adoption until certain games that Valve made forced adoption on Steam. When I worked at EA, we were rolling out Origin. Origin adoption didn't happen until people were forced to download Battlefield and now Apex Legends through that, right? Perhaps the winner of these chain wars is whoever picks the best content. And it's not necessarily a lot of content. It can only be maybe 1 or 2 hit games. The Epic Game Store would not exist without Fortnite, right? So,
I just want to add on that, because you're talking about winners, but from a perspective of I am the chain and I own, I am Bitcoin, so I want to win. But from the perspective of a developer, actually, of course we want to provide as much value as we can, and that content will ultimately win. But I believe the mecca for a developer is to distribute as much as we can. So
yes.
once we figure out multi-chain, that would be the winner when we can have our games, our products on all chains. That'll be awesome.
I like to ideally think that we're in this business to make a game that people get to play and enjoy, not just making money, even though that's a nice side feature. But maybe I could, we've got 9 minutes or so, open up to a few questions, if you would, of the panelists. Tay?
Yeah, so there's a lot of conversation about how you should make a fun game first in Web3, but what I was always curious about is that I'm like, is there a way that you can actually add fun using Web3? And I never seen anyone talk about it. Could you guys come up with examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of touches on some other topics you talked about before in terms of like what's different and what's new and what's challenging. Like I believe already there are games out there that do this remarkable thing of taking 2 completely different demographics that would never play a game together and bringing them together. So what do I mean by that? You have games that you have the player and the player class, and the players are playing and engaging, and in order to play and to get further, they need to purchase some sort of asset. And then you have the investor class, right? So kind of your point about this new Bartle, persona that's essentially being opened up. This investor class is now there, and in fact, there's a lot of games I don't have the time to play, but I love engaging with the ecosystem. I like dealing with the people in the community. So I invest, I rent out assets, and that's fun for me. It's fun, and I still feel like I'm part of the game and part of running a clan.
Do you guys know the name for these types of people? They call them crypto degens. So as opposed to intrinsically motivated players who play for fun, these folks are extrinsically motivated. They're in it, frankly, for the money. And yet they're a new valid player class, right?
But just to be clear, it's not necessarily the money. I'm not necessarily, me and a lot of them don't even have the expectation of necessarily having return on investment. It's about being invested on a deeper level where money is a proxy for that investment, if that makes sense. So,
Absolutely.
That's not new though. And then in the free-to-play world, we call it whales, right?
no, because whales are players, right? So this is a whole class that's not even playing. They're just engaging.
The question was
Yeah.
how Web3 will add
Fun.
So yeah,
Talk about getting back to the financial question.
Yeah, it's fun.
There's
It's fun. Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation too, and then that can be fun. I mean, something that I'm really excited about in the blockchain space is the smart contract, and that's embedded in the token, it's embedded in the NFT. And the smart contract allows anybody, not just an investor, but also the players, to contribute towards the vision, right? When we make good content, we make good games, we're thinking about community first. So to make a fun game, think about what your community desires first and foremost, and then when you have that experience figured out, you can actually bake in certain things, like stipulations into your smart contract. For example, if you want retention in your game, perhaps you should create an NFT that you get on day 1 or day 0, and then by day 30, in the smart contract, you could be gaining currency every single day.
If I may, I look at Tay's face and I know what he's saying. This answer is not being answered. Just like, what's your name? Jasper. Same question. It's like, why is blockchain, NFT, Web3 fun, right? What does that do or add to the game?
All right, can I add in, building on that, you can sort of leverage this using smart contracts and building on-chain in ways that are not necessarily financial, not necessarily about speculation. An interesting one that I found more recently, it's a team called Curio, and basically they're building on-chain games, and they call it like user-generated logic, what they're building out. So if you have a completely on-chain Forex game, you can think about the capabilities for the community members or players of the game to think about, this is a game mechanic that I want to have. Maybe I want to make an agreement with another player that we're not going to attack each other. And you can have that as something that's built, that the player creates that mechanic. It's built into the game. They agree to this between each other. No interaction with the game developer at all. And now, as part of the game itself, it is programmatically impossible for them to attack each other. And so you're able to leverage the creativity of the community to enable them to create their own content it's not about speculation. It's not just rehashing what's already been done or just about art, but they're able to create interesting experiences and just fully on their own, and that can create huge potential new community interactions.
I'm going to take one crack at this too, because I'm suspecting, like yourself, even though I was passionate about free-to-play, I got dragged kicking and screaming into Web3. This isn't fun, this is a Ponzi scheme, it doesn't matter, why are we doing this? So I joined this company called Azra. It's founded by the guy who helped design Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I'm going to give you a story of what we've done and let you extrapolate from that where it could be fun someday. But that is the billion-dollar question, right? Whoever can figure out a fun game in Web3 will recoup the win here.
I actually don't agree with that. Web3 doesn't have to add any fun to be successful.
Sure.
Because like, Web3 just put the technology behind like helping you to monetize better.
Yes.
But the question here is that like, how is there a way you can make Web3 game so like if you were to become a impact in gameplay, then there are some mechanics that only Web3 can do that without Web3 doesn't work.
So Azra makes a collectible and combat RPG game. Collectible, okay? We issued 5,000 some NFTs for free not too long ago. Honestly, they're not worth that much. They're just player passes. They have no true intrinsic value in them, anything like that. We did it, frankly, to number one, build an audience, and number two, we had a test. There's 5,000 NFTs. They kind of generally look the same character face, different colors, different armor, different weapons, but it's the ones where it's slight iterations on 5,000 automatically generated NFT images. But in that, we put 5 chase targets, special NFTs given to the founders. They had a unique value to them. We're kind of curious, would people go out there and find out that there were 5 or 6 chase targets inside of this mass market group, and what would they do with them? And what do we find? People found us very quickly. It's not hard to track, but people did the work of tracking it down and started offering us bids for NFTs. So instead of 1 ETH, now it's 2, 3, 20 ETH, right? So people are starting to offer $10,000, $20,000, $20,000 or more to buy these things. They went out there and found them in under 24 hours. Something that is rare, something that's unique. There's some sort of, I discovered something special that people don't know about. Collectors had fun going to hunt this stuff down.
It really depends on what your definition of fun is. And my definition of fun is to enhance relaxation while mitigating stress. So depending on where you are in the Bartle type or how you come into this blockchain space, you effectively want to mitigate stress as best as you can. And so, there is a utility to some of the NFTs out there, which is fun for collectors out there or people who are engaged in RPGs or people who are looking for a special or rare chase card. I think that's pretty fun as well. But coming back to community first, right, that is so important for making a fun experience. Because the players in the community first, we can give them that hack and slash dopamine, or we can give them a chase game, or we can give them an auction house, and it's all tied within the same ecosystem, and it happens quite organically. So in a way, right, when you ask like how do we make fun into the experience, well, you kind of have to think about the whole meta of how this is all interconnected, and you have to be the master of one before you can start mastering everything else. So I think the advice from many of the other panelists here is make a fun game first, master it, and then you'll see the other opportunities organically popping up because the players will surprise you at every point in time.
Dave, I think we'll give this back to you.